And I have to hit the thing that swings the camera around. And now we're on. And you'll see it says 0 people. 0 people here now. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this tweet. And I'm going to send it now. Can I send it now? Yeah, I'll just
0 people, what a record.
copy it right now. We'll send that at 10:45 a.m. We're going to drop that, paste it in there. All right. The tweet has gone out that will announce it. So, and if any of you are watching this back on YouTube, because this will be archived on YouTube, the guy I'm talking to over there is my son Isaac. Isaac's in the studio, the room with me right now. So he's with me. And the other thing I'm going to tell you is it says 0 people are here, but that's only through the app. Online, people can tune in online and watch it on the stream, and those numbers are not reflected in the number of people there. So yeah, so it's tough to tell. It says 1 people is here. Oh, I see. 1 people checked in and then checked out. Then you'll have a lot of people who just check in. They look to see, who is that? You know, what's going on? And then they'll tune out. So there's a lot of that. Hey, we got somebody, and they're gone, just that quickly. See, a lot of that's what's weird about this. People will check in, they'll see what's going on, and then they'll be like, bam, I'm gone. And the goal is to see if we can get a few people to stick around, start a conversation, and then once they do, like that person, oh, now they're gone. It's that quick. People will pop in, they'll say, oh, there's nothing really happening there, you know. And then they're out of there. 1 new notification. Meerkat retweets. Episode 14. All right, 1 person here now. Stick around. We're going to have a few more people showing up here. Getting the word out on Twitter, and the show starts very shortly. Thanks a lot for checking things out this morning. And what I'm doing right now is just sending some tweets, getting the word out there about this. Now we got a couple people in the house. Good deal. Thank you for that. My dog walking out of the room. Either in or out, Suds. What's it going to be? All right. So, yep, what I'm doing now is just putting the word out on Twitter. Hey, did you hear my daughter? I'm about to go ask her to not yell during my podcast.
Should I go tell?
I'll do it, because if you do it then... And that's my son over there, by the way. My son Isaac is watching off camera. He's going to be hanging out today because he's a huge soccer fan. And he's a little sad about everything happening with FIFA right now, too. So that's what we're going to be doing. It looks like the gentleman who's here now, his name is Alejandro. Alejandro, where are you from? What country? Let's see here. I'm going to get back to the regular screen. Alejandro Leon. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But yeah, I'd love to know what country you're in. If you could type it on the chat window there. Love to know where you're checking in from this morning. Love to know if you're a soccer fan too. That'd be cool. I think we got a lot of soccer fans out there watching this FIFA situation pretty carefully. So this is like the PR aspect of it that I'm talking about today. Not doing a whole lot with the actual sports angle of it, but rather just talking about the whole PR angle and public relations about it, and you know what the league has done right, what they've done wrong, and we'll talk mostly about what they've done wrong and a little bit of that stuff. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens going forward. So now we've got 4 people in the room, and we're going to start the podcast here in probably about 1 or 2 minutes. And the way it'll work is I'm going to start rolling. We're going to start doing the podcast. We'll start talking about this stuff, and I'm going to invite comments throughout the whole thing for you guys to join in and talk about this the whole time. Okay? So good. We got 5 people here. I recognize that dog. Is that who I think it is? Oh, no, I don't know. Peter, were you here I thought Peter was here a couple weeks ago. There was somebody who had a really cute dog who was part of this podcast a couple weeks ago, and that was pretty cool. So that was pretty neat. That was pretty cool. So yeah, we're going to start this podcast recording in just a couple minutes. For those of you who are joining in, if you've never heard an episode of MediaSmart, what this is this is a podcast I do bi-weekly, so once every 2 weeks, talking about various issues and how to work with media. I'm in public relations full-time, so this is something I do on the side. I'm in my house right now. That's the surrounding you're seeing right here. And I just talk about issues in public relations, and we talk about media training and how to do better in the media. And I thought this situation with FIFA was interesting because Sepp Blatter and Jack Warner are two guys who just don't seem like they know what the heck they're doing in the media, right? I mean, they do some pretty crazy stuff, and I think it's reflected poorly on their organization, and that's sad because there's so many people who love soccer or football, depending on what you call it, where you live. And by the way, I'd love to know where you folks are checking in from today. So we've got a few folks in the room. I'd love to know where you're at across the world. I'd love to know if we've got some folks from the States, got some folks from overseas. I know we have soccer fans all around the world. And it would be really neat to know where you guys are checking in from. So feel free to say so in the comments. And so my son Isaac, who's a huge soccer fan, is watching off camera over here. I'm just going to tilt over. Wave hi, Isaac.
Hi.
Hi. All right. Isaac's a huge soccer fan, so he's watching with me today, and or he's watching this whole thing happen right now. And so he's going to be here, and he just kind of, and he might be starting a sports meerkat soon too, a sports meerkat for kids. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit later too, he and I, and then maybe you'll see some tweets on the MediaSmart Twitter feed. MediaSmart is the name of the podcast that I'm talking about. MediaSmart.info is the website. I'm on Twitter at MediaSmartPod. That's all one word, MediaSmartPod. So that's how things work. I think we're about to get started here, so I'm going to hit the door over here. I'll be right back. All right. And again, we're here to talk about the FIFA situation. And again, just for those of you who may have just popped in, what we're doing is this is a live podcast taping. I'm going to start talking. I'm going to do the podcast. I'm going to turn to you folks for questions. So anytime you add comments on the screen, I'm going to be looking constantly throughout the show, and I'm going to incorporate those into the program. I don't want you to think this is one of those meerkats where you just kind of tune in and I expect you to listen and not do anything. I really would love for this to be interactive. I'd love to get your thoughts on the FIFA situation and on especially the PR aspect of it. So I'm really glad that all you folks are here. Let's go ahead and hit record, and we'll get going with this week's program. All right, we're recording audio. It's official now. Our listeners range from business leaders to government officials to entrepreneurs, and we've got a lot of PR pros as well. Anybody who could end up on camera, on mic, or on the phone with a reporter. This is the program where we give you advice that you can use to prepare for the media spotlight. This is where I drive a discussion around what to say and how to say it. You're the one with the knowledge. This is where I drive a discussion about what to say and how to say it. I'm Scott Gilbert, host of MediaSmart, and thank you so much for joining me for episode 15. I hope you'll also join the dialogue by adding your thoughts, your insights, and questions as well to this and other show posts at MediaSmart.info. The website again is MediaSmart.info. And also be sure to follow MediaSmartPod on Twitter as well. Now, FIFA, the world organization that governs soccer or football, depending on what country you're in, is mired in two different investigations right now. And so, as I'm sure you've seen in the media, the first investigation is a Swiss criminal investigation into the highly controversial 2018 and 2022 World Cup bids, which went to Russia and Qatar, respectively. Authorities have questioned a few people now. Nobody's been arrested. Outgoing President Sepp Blatter is not being questioned as part of this probe, but the Office of the Attorney General in Switzerland says that it's also a very early investigation, so I don't think they're calling that out of question at this point. In the second investigation into FIFA, it's the U.S. You know, we've seen people in FBI shirts involved with this. The U.S. investigation that's targeting alleged wrongdoing that spans 24 years at FIFA. 24 years. U.S. prosecutors issued arrest warrants for 14 different people in the organization, and they range from money laundering to fraud to racketeering. Prosecutors say they include FIFA officials who took bribes that total more than $150 million, and in return, they provided lucrative media and marketing rights to soccer tournaments. So some pretty serious charges against this humongous organization in the world right now. It's an understatement, of course, to call all of this a PR nightmare, isn't it? I mean, but that's really what we're discussing on MediaSmart today. That's the purpose of this program, is to discuss the public relations aspect of this. And yes, we realize the organization as a whole is under fire. Several top executives, including two figures in particular, to make matters worse, what are they doing? Are they out there supporting each other, working off the same set of talking points? Oh, absolutely not. They're fighting for self-preservation. They're trying to throw each other under the bus. It's a blatant, desperate move for self-preservation happening out there. So it occurred to me over the past week or so that there are at least 3 lessons that we can glean from the situation that FIFA, the world governing body facing, or that governs soccer and football, is currently facing. And as we do this podcast, we're going to go through these lessons, but also as you're listening back to this, whenever you're listening back to this podcast, it's important you understand that on Sunday, June 7th, as we record this, I'm also streaming this on Meerkat, and I've got a few folks here who I hope will contribute questions and comments to this dialogue as we go through the program. So we're going to be incorporating those comments from Meerkat into MediaSmart this week, and it should be a really good time and good show. We've done this a couple times. It's worked out really well, and I hope we have a really good dialogue, and I hope that people just express their opinions and thoughts and just throw anything out there on Meerkat, and we'll definitely work to incorporate things into the show. So let's move on to the first lesson that I think we can glean from all this FIFA stuff. Former senior FIFA official Jack Warner, who was indicted in a wide-ranging bribery scandal, has promised to unleash a tide of evidence relating to the dealings of World Soccer's governing body and its president, now outgoing president, Sepp Blatter. And we'll talk more about him a little bit later in the program. He scored the opposite, that is, Warner scored the opposite of a public relations goal this past week by citing an article that read, FIFA frantically announces 2015 Summer World Cup in the United States. And he held this news report up saying that the sporting body had created an alternative tournament just to appease U.S. officials, proving that the U.S. was in on this, that basically FIFA is just trying to cater to the U.S. and that the U.S. is obviously a part of some sort of corrupt investigation and that there's some sort of agenda behind the U.S. investigation. Well, the problem is, this article, with that headline, reading FIFA frantically announces 2015 Summer World Cup in the United States, came from The Onion, a satirical paper. And so Jack Warner, on a YouTube video, he held up a copy of that article and he said, here's what's going on. Here's the true motivation behind the FBI investigation. And turns out it was a fake news article. Now, again, this video was posted on YouTube. Obviously, once this was pointed out to Jack Warner, he went online, took the portion of that video off where he cited this Onion article, and then reposted the video to try to cover it up. But can you ever really cover something up like that in the media, or on the internet rather? No. Once it's out there, somebody has seen it, somebody has somehow recorded it or grabbed the file, and there's no hiding from it. So what's the lesson that we can draw from this? Lesson number 1, I think, is, okay, I know it's an extreme example, but for the rest of us, I think we can all kind of realize that we need to make sure we're heading into an interview, a news conference, a YouTube video, or whatever it may be, with sound information. We have to have command of the information that we're about to share. Do you know the information cold? Or are you heading into the interview with a list of surface level talking points that somebody handed to you? There's a big difference in how you'll respond to the questions, because whether or not you know the information cold will dictate how confident you are, right? So if you only know the talking points, what's going to happen when you get follow-up questions? If you know those talking points and you can put them out there beautifully in nice sound bites, and then somebody asks you a talking point and asks you to expand on something, you won't be able to do it, because all you've got up here in your head are those talking points. And if you've only memorized talking points, how do you know that they're valid in the first place if you don't really know the issue at hand, right? How do you know somebody didn't rip them out of the Onion and hand them to you, right? I mean, truthfully, they could have come from anywhere. Hopefully, if they came from your PR person, they're valid and they're good. But I'm always skeptical when anybody in any organization takes a set of talking points right before an interview, reviews them, and says, okay, I'm good to go. Now, that person should have been studying up on the issue all along, and then they should be all ready to hit the interview with really good sound information. So to recap lesson number 1, always make sure you're heading into the interview, the news conference, etc., with good sound information. Let's head on to PR lesson number 2 from the FIFA situation. shortly after he left a Trinidad and Tobago jail in an ambulance. Oh boy, I got a problem here, guys. Sorry. My recorder has stopped recording and I don't know why. That's a problem. Let me just see how much of the show I've gotten so far. Because, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Oh man. I had levels. I had levels earlier, and now I have no idea what has happened to that. So I am going to say, no, don't delete that. I'm going to save this as, bear with me folks, this is the beauty of doing live. When something doesn't go right, when something doesn't record quite right, I'm going to call this podcast -1. We're going to record that. We're going to shut down the recorder. I don't know why I would have done that. That's really bizarre. All right, let's see here. Check 1, 2, 3. Nope, still doing it. While I'm trying to get this in shape, does anybody on Meerkat have any thoughts on the whole situation with FIFA? Does anybody have any kind of thoughts about that? Use this line, master volume. What does that even mean? All right, let's just give it a shot. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be like 1 second, folks. I'll get this figured out. By the way, for those of you who do podcasts, I don't know if any of you there do podcasts. I'm using a program called Total Recorder. I don't use that to edit the program because it doesn't actually have an editing function, but I use Adobe Audition to edit, and it's a great program, but it's also a bit of a memory hog. So I don't like to run it in the background when I'm doing something like this. Although right now I might have no choice. So if Adobe Audition records this thing, let's see if I'm getting levels here. Check 1, 2, 3. Well, that's a good sign, Isaac G. By the way, say hi to my son. He's right over here.
Hi.
There's Isaac. Isaac's a big soccer fan. Like I was telling people earlier, you know, he's hanging out. Wave hi. Okay. All right, we just got someone else joining. I want you to wave hi. All right. Isaac's joining in today's program because he's a big soccer fan, and I think he's following this FIFA thing on some level, even at age 9. By the way, say hi to my son. He's right over here.
Hi.
Yeah, that's not right. All right, I'm still trying to record this thing, and the problem is the input's not right. I gotta get the right input into the computer. So bear with me while we do that. Again, I apologize for the glitch here. I don't really understand exactly what happened because things were working, needles were bouncing, and all of a sudden they're not. So I think we're gonna have to try to give this a shot here. Go in, let's see here. Go into the software, record off the soundboard, USB audio. That looks right to me. Is that going to be right? Check 1, 2, 3. All right, that's not working. Let's try it again. Let's just, yep, I know, I understand. I understand, computer. Calm down. All right, let's plug this back in. If any of you have a podcast out there, you probably can relate to what I'm going through right now. A little bit of a technical issue. A little bit of a technical glitch. Hopefully we'll get it fixed here very shortly. And again, I apologize for the delay. Oh, whole program just shut down. Reboot. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No dice. No dice. Let's see here. Recording source. System default device. That's what worked before. System default device. Yeah, that'll work. If anybody has ideas, please throw them out there. I've recorded 15 this is 15th episode of MediaSmart, and I've never had this problem before, and I've recorded them all in Total Recorder. I've never had this problem before. First time for everything, huh? I'm glad you could see this, Isaac G. This is how we troubleshoot on the fly here. See, and folks popping into the room here. And so if you're just joining us, actually I don't think any of you are. I think the people who joined us have already unjoined us. Like, what the heck is that guy doing? Okay, let's go with used lines detected in the mixer. Let's try that. How's that? Huh? Huh? Nope. All right. Friends, I am going to do a reboot. And I apologize. That's going to take us about 2 or 3 minutes, but then we'll be back up and running here any second. Let's see here. What do I have to do? All right. I'm just going to shut it all down, reboot it, and because, you know, whenever you call the help desk, you ever notice? Anytime you call a help desk anywhere, that's what they tell you to do. They're like, yeah, did you try a reboot? Yeah, I tried to reboot it 3 times. It didn't work. Oh, okay. Try to reboot it a 4th time. Maybe it'll work then. Meerkat peeps are used to being patient. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So, we're rebooting. Anybody have any thoughts? Where's everybody checking in from today, by the way? I'm just curious. Where are people at? Zayed Kat, if I'm saying your name right, where are you at? Get things started here. Where are you joining us from today? And the other thing that you need to know is what they're typing on the screen, I'm seeing about 15 seconds after they type it. There's a bit of a lag in Meerkat, anywhere between 10 and 15 seconds. So if I pose a question, then it pops up. Yeah, Western New York. So we have somebody in Western New York. Very cool. Rochester. Very cool. Not far from, yeah, okay, so you're University of Rochester area. Not far from the Eastman School of Music. Have a couple friends who went there. It's one of the best music schools in the nation, by the way. That's my son watching intently. All right. But thank you, folks. I appreciate your patience in hanging through this here. Looks like we're logging back on here. We'll see what happens. And, very cool. Where's everybody else from? By the way, I have a feeling that these Meerkat logos up here are people who are watching online on the website, which I'm glad you're watching. Thank you. But if you're watching through the website, there's no comment ability, at least yet. So it'll be interesting to see is what the folks at Meerkat do with the functionality of this program. And if someday they decide to, you know, kind of make it a little bit more robust. But I think right now they've started with this program that allows you to broadcast on the internet, and now they you know, they're building on it little by little. And some of the new changes they made the other day are kind of cool. You know, when you're scrolling through, you can see the stream kind of in real time. Well, there goes my theory. Zayed Kat's commenting from the web. So I guess you can comment from the web. All right, very cool. Very cool. Thank you for joining in today, everybody. That's awesome. Let's see, where is everybody else here? We have Cross-Eyed Cat. Thank you for being here today. We have Nate in the house. Thank you for being here. We have somebody with what looks like a Russian name. You see those letters there, Isaac G? I'm not sure, but I believe those are Russian. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So that's one of the neatest things about this is you get an international crowd jumping in on Meerkat. You get people from all over the world who just pop in just to see what's going on. Yes! Good news about the reboot. I think it worked. I'm recording. Check 1, 2, 3. All right, 1, 2, 3. Let's go back and listen to this 5-second track. Yes! Good news about the reboot. All right. All right, folks. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit new on that file. New. I am not going to open as many things on my screen this time because I think that might have kind of messed things up a little bit, you know? You know, when you open up a ton of apps and your computer's like breathing heavy going, I can't keep up with all this stuff. So I'm just going to open up my Word document that I use as bullet points, which, by the way, that's how I do this. I do this off of bullet points. I've got a lot of the thoughts up here, but at my advanced age, he calls me old all the time. That's why I thought you'd find that funny. Now he's laughing. Look, now he's laughing. Now he's cracking up. Yeah, you should hear the jokes. He called me 63 this morning. Nothing wrong with 63-year-olds. But I'm 41. I'm not 63. Right? All right. It's only going to take a couple minutes to go over bullet point number 1 again. So if you will indulge me for this, folks who are watching on Meerkat, I'm going to start over at the beginning. We're going to jump right on through the first bullet point, and we'll be off and running here. And as I'm going through, especially because you know what's coming up, please feel free to add your comments at any point. I think I know what screwed things up. I think I was messing with something on YouTube. I had a YouTube video I was going to try to play through this, and it ended up not working. So I think what happened was when I hit play on YouTube, it screwed up the sound card because it's a very basic sound card in this computer. So that's why for the first time in like 15 episodes that has happened. So, all right, reboot, take 2, here we go. I've got an intro that runs, and then in post-prod I put music over it, and then I say something like, our listeners are business leaders, they're government officials, entrepreneurs. Oops, too hot on the levels. Take 2, 3. Our listeners range from PR pros to business leaders to government officials to entrepreneurs. Pretty much anybody who could end up on camera, on mic, or on the phone with a reporter. This is the program loaded with advice that you can use to prepare for the media spotlight. You have the knowledge. This is where I drive a discussion around what to say and how to say it. Thanks for being here today. I'm Scott Gilbert, host of MediaSmart. Thank you for joining us for episode 15, and I do hope you'll join the dialogue by adding your thoughts, your insights, and questions to this and some other show posts at mediasmart.info. And also be sure to join MediaSmart Pod on Twitter. Now, as I'm recording this episode on Sunday, June 7th, it's important that those of you who are listening to the recording of this know that what I'm doing is I'm actually doing this live on Meerkat as well. So throughout the show, I'm going to be taking time to pause and take the comments from people who are commenting on Meerkat. We've got about 7 people in the room right now. Maybe some more will join in. Those who are here, please feel free to add your comments or questions, your incisive opinions, anything you'd like, and I'll definitely include those in the program, because I think that's where the strength of this kind of thing really can come through, when it becomes not just one dude talking into a microphone, but rather a real good dialogue. This week's dialogue, I thought we could build around FIFA, the world governing body for soccer or football, whatever you call it in your country. Obviously, they're mired in 2 investigations right now, and I'll just recap those very briefly. The first is a Swiss criminal investigation into the 2018 and 2022 World Cup bids, which went to Russia and Qatar, respectively. Now, authorities have questioned a few people. So far, with regard to this, nobody's been arrested. FIFA's outgoing president, Sepp Blatter, is not being questioned about this investigation at this time, at least according to the Office of the Attorney General of Switzerland. But they've also said it's very early in their investigation, so that could change. Now, the second is a U.S.-led investigation, right? And this has raised some eyebrows in some places, but it's a U.S. investigation that's targeting alleged wrongdoing that spans 24 years at FIFA. Think about that, 24 years. U.S. prosecutors issued arrest warrants for 14 people on charges ranging from money laundering to fraud to racketeering. The prosecutors say they include FIFA officials who took bribes totaling more than $150 million, and in return they provided lucrative media and marketing rights, according to investigators, to these soccer tournaments. So it's obviously an understatement to call this a PR nightmare. The organization as a whole is under fire. And what are all these executives doing right now? Are these top executives all banding together, forming a common set of talking points and working together to drive through this? Absolutely not. They're trying to throw each other under the bus. It's a blatant, desperate move out of self-preservation. And as a result, it's almost like this organization is caught in the middle of a PR nightmare. Could you imagine working in the PR office at FIFA this week? Stop and think about that. Okay, now just take a deep breath and be glad that you don't work in FIFA's PR office. But that's what we're going to talk about this week on MediaSmart. Some lessons, some PR lessons we can glean from the situation at FIFA, the world governing body behind soccer and football. On to lesson number 1. It originates with former senior FIFA official Jack Warner, who was indicted in a wide-ranging bribery scandal. And he has promised to unleash a tide of evidence relating to the dealings of World Soccer's governing body and its president, Sepp Blatter. Now, of course, he's now the outgoing president because he said he's not going to stick around. But Warner scored the opposite of a public relations goal this past week by citing a news article with the following headline. It read, FIFA frantically announces 2015 Summer World Cup in the United States. Now, Warner holds this article up. He actually had a printout of it, and he held it up online. He said, see, this is proof that the United States and this FBI investigation is all part of a ruse to try to force FIFA into holding some sort of soccer tournament in the United States. It's just a cheap way to get a soccer bid to the U.S. And here, look, it says in this article right here that FIFA has frantically kind of announced this 2015 Summer World Cup. Now, keep in mind, it's June of 2015, and according to this article, yeah, they were going to have this tournament this summer. What does that tell you? Well, if you look closely at the article, you could even see this online when Warner held this up. What did it say at the very top? What was the news outlet? The Onion, a satirical news outlet. So here Jack Warner, this former FIFA official, was clinging to this article as proof that the U.S. had this agenda and this investigation, and that's why it was involved. And it came out of a completely false news report, and he didn't even realize that. Now, in his defense, he's not the first person to ever take an Onion article and to think that it's actually a real news article, but I find that very humorous when it happens. But it happened, and here this guy went on YouTube. He put his own video out there of it, and sure enough, within a few hours, he took the video down off of YouTube because he was like, yeah, you know what, I guess I should probably edit that out. He edited that out of his video, put it back online, but it was too late. Because again, once something goes out on the internet, does it ever really go away? No. It really never does, which is kind of scary. So Jack Warner is out there citing the Onion. What is the PR lesson number one here that we can draw from Jack Warner's frantic reference to the Onion? Before an interview or press event, ask yourself, how confident are you in the information you're about to share? Because the lesson number one here, I think, is always make sure you're heading into the interview, the news conference, the YouTube video with sound information. You are only as strong as the information you're taking into the conversation, right? Into the interview. And if you don't have ultimate confidence in that information, now I know you're not going to grab an article out of the Onion and share it in an interview, but what about those talking points? Is that all you know about the story? Do you just know the high-level talking points? Or do you just know the story at surface level? Or do you know this information in situation cold? Do you know it really, really well? There's a big difference in how you'll respond to the questions. And a lot of that resides in the confidence you'll have, how confident you'll sound when you're doing so. If you only know the talking points, what'll happen when a reporter asks you follow-up questions, right? You might recite the talking points beautifully and perfectly with great inflection. You'll be like, oh, I'm all proud of myself. And then a reporter asks you a follow-up question. And you're like, I don't know. It doesn't say that here on the paper. You need to head into the interview with the ultimate confidence and kind of a baseline knowledge of the information you're going to be talking about, right? Because if it's an interview that's going to last any more than 2 minutes, those talking points are going to run out in about 2 minutes. And if you've only memorized the talking points, here's another thing. How do you even know that they're valid? How do you know that the PR person who handed these talking points to you knew their stuff? You need to view these things objectively, right? And I'm always a little bit skeptical when there's a situation where an executive has obviously just been handed a set of talking points. They've reviewed them maybe 5 or 10 minutes before an event. Then the light goes on and they're talking to the camera about this situation. It's not a good model to go by. So to recap lesson number one, always make sure you're heading into the interview, the news conference, the YouTube video with sound information. Lesson number two, it also comes from our friend FIFA official, former FIFA official Jack Warner. Shortly after Warner left a Trinidad and Tobago jail in an ambulance, having reportedly been released on bail on the grounds of exhaustion, Warner held a news conference in which he accused the United States of a witch hunt by dancing and singing. At the end of this news conference, what did he do? He danced and sang with a whole bunch of people to Bob Marley's Every Little Thing is Gonna Be Alright. Yep, don't worry about a thing, because every little thing is gonna be alright. And that's the image that was out there of him in the news. Yeah, not long after this whole Onion news article situation. Now Jack Warner is out there seen in news reports basically thumbing his nose at this whole investigation, saying, I'm going to sing Bob Marley and show them a thing or two. That would kind of be like saying, well, if you're a lawyer, you're representing a defendant, you're saying, we're confident my client will be found not guilty of vehicular manslaughter. Now please excuse us while we dance to Jai Ho. Remember that song from Slumdog Millionaire? This part's going to be a lot better when I do post-prod because I'm going to mix Jai Ho in right there. That's where it's going to go, right there. So this is going to be like a pretty cool part of it. Well, the takeaway here, like I just said, is that thumbing your nose or, flipping the bird, whatever, the world just doesn't come across that well. You're not going to do that in an interview. Just like you're not going to cite the onion. I know, people who are listening to this podcast are not going to be that blatant as to go out there and dance to some Marley at a news conference. But there is a more serious, maybe more base level takeaway here. Being careful with your messaging so as to not come across as arrogant or cocky. It's all about credibility, right? So, confidence is an important way to establish credibility. You want to be confident in that interview, but everything in moderation, right? Because too much confidence means you're overconfident, means you're arrogant, means you're cocky. And what does that do? It immediately erodes your confidence. The viewer sits back in their chair and they view things a little more skeptically, thinking, why is this person so cocky? Why is this person so well rehearsed? On the other side of things, of course, being somewhat humble can be good, but not necessarily timid or shy, right? Because in an interview setting, if you're timid or shy, you come across as lacking confidence. And in fact, if you're too timid or too shy and your answers are too short, it can make people wonder, what exactly is he not saying right now? What is it that person is not saying to me? Because then that breeds more skepticism in the mind of the audience and possibly even the journalist. Side note, remember, journalists are very skeptical people. So the goal in any interview should be to be warm, friendly, and genuine. Not timid or nervous, and not overconfident, arrogant, or boisterous. And that is lesson number 2. Lesson number 3, I think we can draw from all this FIFA stuff, the third and final lesson. Don't say something adamantly one week and then contradict it 5 days later. Yeah, the Associated Press headline on Friday, May 29th read, FIFA president won't resign, seeks 5th term amid World Cup corruption crisis. This was on May 29th, right? It was on that day that Sepp Blatter, the FIFA president, was indeed elected to another term, a 5th term as president of the world governing body. A news release on FIFA's website that day even included the following quote from Blatter. It said, "I take the responsibility to bring FIFA back to where it should be." That was on Friday, May 29th. Then on Wednesday, June 3rd, do you remember what the headline was there? Blatter announces he'll step down as FIFA president, completely contradicting what he had said just 5 days prior. That reflects very poorly, doesn't it, on the individual and the organization. So here on one day he had said, I'm going to see this organization through this. And when he did that, my point is, he didn't have the foresight to realize that there's a possibility he may not last another couple weeks. Yeah, in a situation like that, you want to exude confidence. I'm sure he wanted to think of himself as the guy to take FIFA through this humongous challenge. But I think he should have used more tempered language. Now, I know that tempered language is not really in Sepp Blatter's vocabulary, right? This is a guy who's seen, quite frankly, quite often as very arrogant. So, but perhaps he could have said on Friday, May 29th, he could have said, I hope to be the individual who can bring FIFA back to where it should be. Just tempering it with a little bit of language here or there to keep from sounding as arrogant, and then eventually on May 3rd as contradictory as he ended up sounding. So what can we take away from this example from FIFA? We can take away the important point that we need to think about how what you're saying today will hold up tomorrow, how it'll hold up next week, how it'll hold up even next month or beyond. You want to have the long view as to what you're saying, how what you're saying will hold up down the road. You don't want to be the CEO who gets out there and says, our company is fiscally sound, and in fact, we are positioned for very solid growth in the future. Then a month later, there are layoffs at your company. Journalists will remember and connect your comments. Cross-reference previous comment I just made. Journalists are a skeptical lot, right? They'll see that contradiction and they will seize on it. They will jump on it. They'll say, wait, you just said that your company is fiscally sound and positioned for solid growth. I have it right here in black and white. You said that to the world. And now you're laying off 150 people? Which is it? You can't have it both ways. Journalists will make that connection. Some of them will. All it takes is one, right? If one journalist makes that connection, they're savvy enough, all of them will jump on that bandwagon, they'll jump on that story. Journalists don't like sensing they've been tricked or fooled. So the takeaway there, I think, takeaway number 3 is don't say something adamantly one week and then contradict it 5 days, a week, or even a month later. And the other two, of course, the other lessons I think I pull from all this at least are make sure you're heading into the news conference, the interview, etc., with good sound information. And make sure you're familiar with that information beyond just the talking points, right? And also, don't come across as arrogant or overly confident in the interview. If you come across that way, you're not going to connect with people. You're not going to connect with the audience, and the reporter's going to take a more adversarial stance with you because they're not going to trust you. I mention trust in almost every episode of this podcast, and I think trust is extremely important in every interview that you do. You know, if you establish that baseline trust with a journalist, you know, I think you're off to a great start. So I want to go back to where I started at the beginning here. Stop and think for a second about what it would be like to be in FIFA's PR department this week. It would be hell, wouldn't it? I mean, they probably all just called in sick a bunch of days. Yeah, I've got strep throat. The doctor says I have to stay home for the next week. I'll see you in a little while. Get on the internet, find your next job, and move on from there. But okay, now relax and smile. Wake up. It would just be a nightmare. You're not in FIFA's PR department. Know that instead, we can all kind of use the organization's at least temporary implosion, if we can call it that, to draw some lessons and start conversations about what is and is not good practice when we're talking with the public and talking with the media. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, we've got a number of folks who've tuned in on Meerkat. We've had a total of about 66 people who've checked in throughout the course of this. We've got a handful of folks in the room now, and I would like to turn to you folks now on Meerkat and see what some of your thoughts are on the FIFA situation. These are I kind of use this situation as a springboard to draw, you know, some messages that I thought could translate well for my podcast. But I'd love to get your thoughts on the FIFA situation as well. As would my son Isaac, who's over there sitting in the chair. And Isaac, by the way, if you're bored, silly, because, I mean, you probably are bored because you're 9. You don't have to stay here. You realize that. He's not bored. Isn't he a good kid? I tell you. I'm telling Isaac he should start a sports Meerkat for kids, because Isaac is a huge sports fan. He loves playing all the sports. He loves watching all the sports. He knows so much more about baseball players than I do. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, thanks. I knew I could count on him to back me up on that. But he does, and I think he should do a Meerkat for on sports, you know, with other kids and stuff like that. See if he can attract a kid audience. I think you'd do well with that. I think that would be fun. I think you should give that a shot. Does anybody have any thoughts on the FIFA situation, or even any general? We'll broaden it out to any even general media training questions, any general PR thoughts or questions, any news of the week beyond FIFA that have drawn any questions in your mind. You know, be giving that some thought, because what I'll do is I'm going to wrap up the podcast recording, and then I think we'll continue the conversation, because we've got a lot of folks here in the chat room now, so we'll keep things going. I just used like a 1990s computer term. Don't make the mistake. I just said chat room. This isn't a chat room. No, this is a Meerkat. And there were probably like, of those 10 people, probably 8 of them just went, he said chat room. I don't blame him. Chat rooms were obsolete before you were born, Isaac. So don't worry about those. And by the way, thank you as well for sticking with me through the technical problems earlier on in this episode. Still recording, so that's always a good thing. So I'm going to wrap this up. And I'm going to, again, turn back to you folks for some thoughts and comments, and we'll just kind of do an afterward conversation, Q&A session here. And I think what I said last on tape was what is and what is not good practice when talking to the public via the media. That's going to do it for this edition of the MediaSmart podcast. I'm really glad you listened, and I hope that you are as well. I also hope that you'll help me continue the conversation by adding your comments to this and other show posts at MediaSmart.info. That's the website, MediaSmart.info. Also, I invite you to follow MediaSmart Pod on Twitter so we can chat there. It's MediaSmart Pod, all one word. That's the handle there. And if you're listening right now on iTunes or on Stitcher, I would really appreciate your feedback in the form of ratings and written reviews. Those ratings help us to reach more people with this program, so I appreciate everybody who's taken the time to do that. I'm Scott Gilbert. Thank you again for listening, and until the next edition of the MediaSmart podcast, I hope you have a great interview. That's my catchy little line on the end there. Hope you have a great interview. Get it? Yeah. All right. I'm going to hit stop on that file and I'm going to save it before I lose it. I'm going to hit play. I'm just going to make sure it's stuck to tape. I think I was messing with something on YouTube. You hear that? I had a YouTube video I was going to try to play through this, and it ended up not working. I think it's working. That resides, you're saying, how we... Oh, that's a very good sign. That's a very good sign. It's stuck to tape, friends. Yay! So those of you who tuned in throughout this podcast, we started with about 5, now we're up to about 11 people right now. Thank you for joining in. What this is, MediaSmart is a podcast I started. My name is Scott. I work at an academic medical center, Penn State's Academic Medical Center in central Pennsylvania in the United States. And I work in public relations. I'm a media relations specialist there. And I have a lot of fun doing media training as part of my job each day. Not each day. I get to do it now and then. That was a slip. But I get to do media training. I get to work with people. I get to work with a room full of people, maybe 6 or 7 people, and guide them through the process of helping them feel more comfortable talking on TV or talking to a newspaper reporter, that kind of thing. So I started this podcast as something to do in my spare time when I'm not coaching his sports teams. And it's something I like to do because, again, we can have conversations around current events like the whole FIFA debacle and all that kind of thing. And I turn those into podcasts that I do bi-weekly. I was doing them weekly, but because I'm helping to coach his baseball team, that got to be a little bit much. And I want to put everything I can into this podcast, and I don't want to kind of trying to use a sanitized term because my son's listening, but I don't want to half it. I don't want to just do an iffy job on it. I want to do a good job on this, and so far the listenership to MediaSmart has been really solid, and some of the viewership to some of these these meerkats connected to MediaSmart have been pretty cool. So yeah, so it's a MediaSmart.info. I've got a Twitter feed, MediaSmart Pod, MediaSmart Pod, and I hope that you'll follow there. And I'd love to know where folks are checking in from. So especially some of you who've just checked in like the last 5 or 10 minutes or so. I'd love to get an idea of where you're at. Looks like we've got Corey in the house. Thank you for being here, friend. We've got Robert. We have got George. We have Nirmala. Nirmala is here. And then one of our, let's see here, Tesla. Oh, pretty cool. Wow, and I got to tell you, I've met all kinds of interesting people through this podcast thing. I'm going to take these headphones off because I don't want to look like Princess Leia anymore. Do you know who Princess Leia is, Ro? Yeah. She's from Star Wars. I need to have him watch Star Wars, don't I? That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad he didn't know who Princess Leia is, and that's on me. I'm his dad.
I watch sports.
That's right, he watches sports, he says. And that's very true. But yeah, so last week I met somebody who was, he runs a Howard Stern superfan website. So I was waiting for him to type Baba Booey in the comment field, and he didn't do it. Until the end, and I said, hey, thank you for not typing Baba Booey, and then he did. Then he typed it like 5 times. I was like, okay. You really are a Howard Stern fan, I can tell. But yeah, so this is a podcast I do where I just try to share information. But the reason I brought this to Meerkat is I don't want it to just be me talking each week. I like the idea of an interactive session. I like the idea of having some of the idea for instant feedback. And to that end, I'm also going to be bringing in some interviewees. I think I'm going to have an interviewee from. I have a couple folks who are involved in media training all throughout the world who I've kind of connected with through my Twitter feed, and I'm hoping to add those interviews here in the coming weeks because again, my podcasts go about 15 minutes or so, and yeah, there are a lot of people who pull that off who do podcasts as just one person talking, but I think there are a lot of people out there who would enjoy other voices, and I don't think I'm the be all and end all. This is kind of, I almost see this as a journey podcast. And those of you who know a thing or two about podcasting, the journey podcasts are where the host is learning right alongside the audience. And again, like I said, I work at an academic medical center. I do media relations there. I do some media training, and it's a lot of fun. But I'm not the world's foremost authority on media training. I'm doing this because I want to get better at it, not because I feel like I'm the world's expert on it and I'm just, going to bloviate. So Where's everybody checking in from? Did anybody have anything going on out there? How's the weather? How's the weather where you're at? Any snow in Rochester? I hear you guys get snow in June. No, probably not. Probably not. It's upstate New York. They get a lot of snow in the winter. You laugh at me, Isaac, but they get a lot of snow in upstate New York in the winter because we actually work with a public relations firm up in Buffalo. And when we have like 2 inches of snow on the ground, they usually have like about 40 inches of snow on the ground. It's like, yeah, take however much snow we have in central PA and add 38 inches, and that's how you know. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, oh, we just had a guy join who's a Penguins hockey fan.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mike just joined in. He's a Penguins hockey fan. We have another Penguins hockey fan in the house here. Right over there. That guy. That's my son Isaac. He's a big Pittsburgh sports fan on 2 sports, and they are
The Steelers and the Penguins.
right. Steelers and the Penguins. We're Nationals fans for baseball, so Mike, I hope you'll forgive us for that. We're big fans of. Oh, he says he loves the Pens. I can tell because I happen to hit the dot here. Oh, where is it? There it is, and it brought up your. Let's see here. A lot of good information about you. And Mike is also a U.S. Army veteran. Mike, thank you for your service. Seriously. I appreciate that. I'm sure a lot of people do. And, it takes a lot of guts to join the armed services, so thank you. My dad was in the Army. He didn't see any wars or anything like that. But, when you sign up, you never really know exactly what you're going to be in for, do you? So, thank you for that. Mike grew up with the 70s Steelers. Okay, so 1970s Steelers. What are some names from the 70s Steelers that we might know? See, again, this kid here is the sports expert, and I'm not. But I know when I was growing up, it was the days of, I think Terry Bradshaw. Is he a Steeler? I think he was a Steeler, right? I should know that. But again, I'm sports dumb.
Mean Joe Green.
I'm like a media nerd. This kid's the sports nerd, if I might call him that. What did you say? What was the name you gave?
Mean Joe Green.
Mean Joe Green? Okay.
Whatever.
All right, cool. Here, as Mike gives us a couple more names here. Cool. Now let me see what else I can find here. Mean Joe Green. See, my kid pulls out some old school names like that sometimes. Let's see here. He played for the Pittsburgh Steelers of the National Football League. Good job, bud. Nice job. There are a lot of people watching this probably thinking, Franco Harris and Lynn Swan.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Franco Harris, Penn State grad? I think he is. Yep, he is. In fact, he's been rather vocal about the whole situation with Joe Paterno departing Penn State, which, again, as I mentioned to some other folks, I work for Penn State's Academic Medical Center, Penn State Hershey Medical Center in Hershey, PA. So, yep, familiar with Franco Harris and some of his current situation. Lynn Swan went on to become a sportscaster. I'm trying to tell this guy over here that if he ends up in professional sports someday, a great thing to do after you're done being an athlete is to do on sports commentary and to do play-by-play and all that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's kind of cool. Kind of cool. Hey, Ro, pull your chair in a little bit here. Let's see if I can get us both in the shot. Let's see here. All right. Oh, that's not good. So you can tell I'm not a TV person. All right, let me do this. Does that work? My camera light's over there, so you can see that. Here, scoot your chair. No, other way. That way. It's opposite of how it looks. It says we can't see you, just FYI. Is the video on the screen? I mean, is the video? Are you seeing the two of us on the screen right now? Because that would be strange if for some reason the video wasn't showing. And Mike, maybe there's an issue on your end or something. If others could let us know. Let me get this microphone out of the way. If others could let us know if you're having trouble seeing us, that would be cool. Yeah, so Mike's a Pittsburgh sports fan. Any other sports fans out there? Any other sports fans watching here from Meerkat? My wife just walked by. I think she's thinking, wow, are they still on there? They're still on there? What the heck? Mike says it's just a gray screen on his end. Can I get a couple other people to help me troubleshoot this and let me know if you're seeing us? Because I'm seeing the video feed through Meerkat on my end, but I'm wondering if we're having a trouble transmitting it or something. Wonder if there's an issue. Okay, Mike's going to leave and come back in. He's going to give that a shot. That sounds good. I'm going to move the TV light a little bit. Let's see here. So, that ought to work. All right. So we're